And joining us to make sense of the current state of play in Russia-Ukraine ties and what it means for the world at large is Ambassador Anil Wadhwa. Ambassador Wadhwa is a former Indian envoy to Italy, Thailand, Oman, Poland and Lithuania. At the Ministry of External Affairs, he also looked after India's relations with Russia and East European countries. Ambassador Wadhwa, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, to begin with, how do you assess recent moves to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict? What do you make of the statements coming out of both Moscow and Kyiv? Ambassador Wadhwa, are you with us? Can you hear me? Well, I will try to fix that line with Ambassador Wadhwa in just a bit, but we are about to discuss the moves underway to bring the Ukraine-Russia conflict to an end, and who better than Ambassador Wadhwa to give you, the viewer, a sense of the current state of play and what the moves mean for India and the world at large, given the stakes involved in the peace in Ukraine. We've seen the US President host his Russian counterpart for talks in Alaska, and followed by his meetings with President Zelensky, as you can see on your screens right now, and also the other European leaders, including the NATO chief, the leaders of the UK, France and Germany, among others. So moves are afoot to bring the Ukraine-Russia conflict to an end, it seems. Whether they will make progress or not remains to be seen. But at the moment, as things stand now, the world remains optimistic of a breakthrough in the near future. Right, I'm told Ambassador Wadhwa is back with us. Ambassador Wadhwa, I meant to ask you, how do you assess recent moves to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict? What do you make of these statements coming out of Moscow and Kyiv?
So I think the groundwork has been laid, in my opinion. Both Ukraine and Russia at the moment seem to be professing the right kind of views on trying to achieve peace in the future.
Okay.
And President Trump has got a lot invested into the process. So I have a feeling that, having heard both sides, he should be able to make sure that the meeting, the trilateral meeting that he's been talking about, comes about sooner rather than later. And I think the Europeans themselves are on board. Of course, they have reservations about the whole process and the security guarantees. As far as Europe is concerned, that's the main point. But I think it's quite clear that, those can be met halfway. In my opinion, I think we are moving towards the right direction.
Ambassador Wadhwa, delving deeper into the issues you've just raised, let's talk a bit now, if you will, about US-Russia relations to begin with. Trump hosted Putin for a summit. Is a US-Russia grand bargain on the cards, a reset of sorts in US-Russia ties?
There is, of course, a possibility of that happening once there is, a solution to the Ukraine crisis. And obviously, the US probably expects that there should be some results of its efforts with the peace process that it is trying to indulge in. And I have a feeling that there is much more that meets the eye, and there is something that President Putin also would have talked to the US President about in terms of the future relationship with the United States, which is a much bigger stake than what is there as far as Europe is concerned and Ukraine is concerned.
Ambassador Wadhwa, if we were to take a step back and look at the world map, as it were, and go over the events of the last 3.5 years in particular, we can safely say that Biden pushed Putin into an even tighter embrace with Xi Jinping. So my question to you is this: can Trump wean Russia away from China?
I think that looks like a difficult proposition, at least in the short to medium term.
Okay.
Perhaps in the long term, that might be one of the objectives, because there is a lot going right now between Russia and China. So to expect that will happen once this peace agreement is signed between Ukraine and Russia, it's a little far-fetched. I think it'll take some time for trust to be restored. Russia will also watch how things go as far as the Europeans are concerned and how the relationship with Ukraine progresses. So we have to be patient about that, but we don't know how this will play out in the long term. Right now, the relationship between China and Russia is strong, and I have a feeling in the medium term, in the short to medium term, it should continue to be that.
Right. Let's now look at it from an Indian perspective, Ambassador Wadhwa. What are the prospects, in your estimation, of a Russia, India, China trilateral? Is it good for India? How will it benefit New Delhi?
Something which has been talked about quite frequently, and the revival of that kind of a relationship. Frankly, there are too many contradictions which exist between India and China at the moment. Of course, there's been a thaw with the recent visit of Wang Yi to India, and Prime Minister Modi will be in China in the near future for the SCO summit. There will also be a bilateral which will be closely watched around capitals in the world. But I would say that to have, even if the trilateral does take place, the kind of adjustments that is feared by many in the Western world or in the United States, that's a little far off. I think what will happen is that all parties will try to gauge each other. How the world relationship develops over the next few months is very crucial, because everything is fluid right now. Nobody can determine how these relationships will fall in place once the current peace process between Russia and Ukraine gets into fruition, and the follow-up which happens thereafter.
Fair enough. If I were to go back to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, Ambassador, can and should New Delhi play its part in bringing peace to Ukraine, host peace talks maybe?
We would like to do that, of course, but it depends on the parties concerned.
Right.
And I think, India would be, of course, a good partner to do that, because we have good relationship with Russia as well as with Ukraine. But it all depends upon how the United States looks at it and how the Europeans would look at that, and we have to choose, depending on, before making a proposal of that sort, to gauge the situation of how it is in the world.
And delving deeper into India-Russia ties, Ambassador, we're getting the latest visuals from Moscow. Minister Jaishankar's talks there, including with Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Manturov. The minister also addressed the Russian scholars and think tanks a short while ago. What do you expect from the minister's ongoing visit to Moscow?
I think it's going to be a good visit. It's going to be very productive.
Okay.
Because we've been expecting that there would be some important decisions taken, and already we have some reports about the fact that there's been a reiteration of the Russian support for on the question of energy relationship with India. I don't think that is something which India will go back on, because it's very important to keep that strategic autonomy in place as far as our energy resources and our purchases of energy from around the world are concerned. India has made it quite clear in the recent past. But other than that, I think it's the other long-term relationship with Russia. Also, the visit from President Putin is due into India, and these visits by our National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, and now the External Affairs Minister, are important visits in that context. These are all preparatory visits, as we call them, as well, because what we're going to agree upon during a summit is important, because the groundwork has to be laid much before. So I would expect that this visit is going to be an important visit, and it will lead to some concrete results.
Indeed. And talking about summits, Ambassador Wadhwa, Prime Minister Modi could, and I'm choosing my words carefully, could meet President Putin on the margins of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization soon. And President Putin himself is expected to visit India later this year. Can India-Russia relations withstand Trump's policies?
Look, I think we should not mix up, the platforms with what the relationship between India and the other countries are concerned, because
Okay.
this SCO is a different platform altogether.
Mhm.
It has its own dynamic, its own processes, and if there are leaders who are meeting over there on the sidelines of this meeting, then that's only natural that they come together and after all, they have a very sound relationship with each other.
Right.
We are not talking here about ganging up or in terms of opposing any particular country, but we're talking about important bilaterals which take place normally on the margins of such meetings. So if it does take place, I think we should take it in that light and not read too much into that.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. Ambassador Vada, pleasure as always to talk to you and have you join this discussion to break it down for our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. Right, moving on.